And so ultimately, what keeping costs low does for us is we have a higher propensity for generosity. Because if we have our low housing costs, then I can look around and say, I have more discretionary income. I can be more generous. I can give more money in all of these places. And that's fantastic. That's something that you want to be. That's something you want to have is more discretionary income to give from. It also creates the ability to build wealth at a higher rate. Like I said earlier, our rate of saving and investing is what it is because our housing costs are what they are. We wouldn't be able to save and invest those amounts if our housing costs weren't what they were. There would be a trade-off that had to happen there, right? And so we would prefer to be building and not having to pay more for no particular reason, right? So you're building with the savings and investing, and that's just going to do you a lot of good over the long term. That's going to allow for good wealth building over the long term. And then this will also allow you to purchase the things you want to purchase without worrying about the guilt or the shame or the debt that may come across with purchasing something. And what does all of this just come back to? It allows you to be financially balanced. It allows you to not overdo it in one place or the other, because ultimately what housing is, like if you're buying a house, like you can call it an investment, but it's really comfort. It's really spending. It's the spending portion of everything that you're doing because you are spending money on living in this particular place. And so it gets you kind of out of whack if you're spending way too much money on that particular place, on that particular housing arrangement, because then you're spending a lot of money and you're not able to remain financially balanced with the saving, giving, investing type things that you are wanting to do maybe, or that you need to be doing. You're not able to do that because you are too heavy in the spending. You're too heavy in the housing costs. And so this all ties back to financial balance and the importance of having a balanced budget and being able to make these decisions for yourself over the long term. And so naturally what we find is keeping these costs low has a distinct impact on our ability to reach our financial goals. It has a distinct impact on our ability to, build wealth and reach financial freedom, because the less that you're spending on housing, the more money you have to do other things. Okay. In a similar way to as I've talked about before with debt, when you don't have debt payments, then you can spend money elsewhere. The same is the case here. And I'm not saying to live in a dump. I'm not saying to live somewhere so cheap so you can just do all these things. No, live somewhere that's reasonable, right? I'm not saying to just cut your housing costs to nothing. I'm just saying be reasonable with your housing costs. And so many people are so unreasonable with their housing costs because they just think, oh, that's just the way it is. That's just how much it's going to cost. And they don't do their due diligence. They don't think it through. They don't think of it as a percentage of their income or something that they can afford. They just think of it in terms of want. That's why I talk about it as spending, because it's something that people want. You want a nice place to live. You don't have to have a nice house, or you don't have to live in a nice apartment or a nice condo or whatever you live in. You don't have to do that. You can just live somewhere that's reasonable, that's safe, that's a good place, it's clean, it's good enough, right? And that will push you towards financial freedom a lot faster, because you'll be able to do things that you weren't able to do paying those high costs that you would have been paying in the nice place. This is another place where we just justify, just like with vehicles, we justify housing in the same way, because we think, oh, we have to have we have to have this even though we can't afford this. Maybe we can afford this. That's what you need to be buying, okay? Now, don't get me wrong. If you can afford this, buy this. That's fine, okay? But if you can't afford this and you're paying for it right now, then you need to get out of that and buy something that is this. And so I just want to implore you to not justify, not play that justification game, and not let your housing costs get out of whack, because it will throw your budget off and not allow you to build wealth and push towards financial freedom as quickly as you could previously. At the end of the day, all I'm asking is that you can afford what you buy or rent. You can afford it. And if you can't, then that's going to bring a lot of trouble. So be able to afford it. And by affording it, I'm not talking about just be able to make the payments. No, be able to do what you want to do in your financial life and keep your percentages in balance, in order, And then that is truly being able to afford something.